So you're considering making a move to Charlotte, North Carolina. Well, don't do it. At least not until you've watched this video first. In all sincerity, Charlotte has been an incredible place to live and raise my family over these last 6 years. But if I'm being honest, there are a few things I wish I would have known before we made the move. In 2018, my family moved from Northeast Ohio to the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And I used to tell people it felt like we moved to a different country, not just a different state. Things were wildly different here. When planning a big move, it is so important to do your research and your homework about the place you're moving to. In today's video, I will share the 10 things I wish I knew before moving to Charlotte, North Carolina, in hopes of making your move a little bit easier and far less stressful. If we've never met before, my name is Christen.ripoli, and I make videos about what it's like to live, work, and play in the greater Charlotte area. I'm also a licensed real estate agent, and I help people just like you buy, sell, relocate, and invest in the greater Charlotte area. So if you're into that sort of thing, be sure to hit that subscribe button and click on that little bell. That way you can be notified every time we post a video like this. And if you get a bunch of value out of today's video, you can go ahead and save it. What I found is that a lot of my clients go back time and time again and rewatch those same videos to make sure that Charlotte is a good fit. And more importantly, what place matches their ideal lifestyle. And that's what we're going to get into today. So let's get after it right now. So the first thing I want to get into is a little geography lesson because not everyone is familiar with the Charlotte area. So if you've never been here before, Charlotte is located nearly right on the border of North and South Carolina in the western half of the state. To the west of Charlotte, you will find the Blue Ridge Mountains. And if you go east from Charlotte, you will eventually hit the coast. It will take several hours to get there, however. If you weren't aware, the state of North Carolina is a fairly large state. It's actually roughly 500 miles across. So depending on where you're headed, you might have quite the drive. For instance, it would take you a little over 2 hours to drive from Charlotte to Asheville. If you were going to our state capital in Raleigh, it would take about 2.5 hours. If you wanted to go to Wilmington, it would take about 3.5 hours. And if you wanted to go to the Outer Banks, it would actually take you about 6 hours. Just to give you a little perspective, when we drive home to Northeast Ohio to visit family, we can get all the way to Morgantown, West Virginia in 6 hours. So it's about the same distance from here to Morgantown, passing through all of North Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia, as it is just to get to the Outer Banks. And it'll take us about 8 hours to get all the way to Hubbard, where our family is from. And while we're on the topic of driving, let's get into the first thing I wish I'd knew about Charlotte before I moved here, and that is traffic. The first thing to understand about traffic in the Queen City is that depending on the time of day and where you're headed, you may be driving slower than you'd like. Now, I know we don't even rank in the top 30 for worst traffic areas in the nation. If you're moving from Chicago, Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Miami, etc., then you're going to think Charlotte traffic is smooth sailing. I think the major issue that's causing congestion is that the city is growing so fast that the infrastructure can't keep up. They are working on it. You can see construction happening everywhere, but I think we'll be playing catch up for a long time. You're probably wondering, when and where are we going to find the worst congestion in the city? And that is a great question. You're going to find the morning rush to be between 7:30 and 9 or 9:30 in the morning, and the afternoon rush is going to be from 4:30 to 6:30. Now on Fridays, it is likely to start quite a bit earlier as people are either getting ready to travel for the weekend or getting out of work early. So maybe around like 3 o'clock on a Friday afternoon is when traffic starts to pick up. So the heaviest traffic you're going to find in Charlotte is going to be on I-77 between Charlotte, Uptown Charlotte, and 485. So this route right here is going to be pretty heavy traffic. Then if you follow 77 into Huntersville, you're going to see another additional bit of traffic in that area. Now on 485, which is our beltway, our loop around the city, the circumference of 485 is 67 miles long, and you're going to hit your most busy, most congested area right around the Ballantyne area, so South Charlotte. And then one more place on 85 going west and entering into Gaston County from Charlotte. So those are going to be your heaviest traffic pieces of your drive. But it's also really cool because you can just Google it and find a real-time traffic map, which, what did we do without technology, right? This is fantastic. The other thing it's important to note about traffic is that people bring their driving habits from wherever they're moving from. And we have a lot of people here that did not come from the Charlotte area. It is estimated that 6 out of every 10 people in the Charlotte area came from somewhere else. So just keep in mind, get some perspective around the fact that if you're used to driving in New England, Los Angeles, Manhattan, you're gonna be used to driving a certain way, and you're gonna bring those habits with you to Charlotte, and it's gonna take a little time to get used to driving here where the roads are a little bit different. What happens is it can take people a little bit of time to get out of those habits, and in the meantime, it might cause a little chaos. So when it comes to traffic here in the greater Charlotte area, here's my recommendation. Keep your head on the swivel. Driving is a full contact sport, and you just have to be mindful of it, all right? On that same thread, let's talk a little bit about the unusual street patterns here in the Queen City, which is the second thing I wish I knew before moving to Charlotte. In a study from 2019, Jeff Boeing did a study on the organization of city streets, and out of 100 cities, found Charlotte to be the most disordered. What he meant by disordered is that our city streets don't match the typical grid pattern that you see in other big cities. The most ordered city was Chicago, where the streets are situated in a very strict grid formation. I was actually shocked to find that Charlotte is practically in a class of its own when it comes to entropy in the street systems and doesn't even compare with other American cities. Upon closer inspection, though, you'll notice that Charlotte's uptown streets are situated in a grid, but on a diagonal. For example, if you're driving up North Tryon Street, you're actually traveling northeast. Here's why. The Queen City was founded in 1768 at the crossroads of two Native American trading paths, which ran northeast to southwest and northwest to southeast. The intersection, which forms an X, is now the center of the city. And because of that, the blocks look more like diamonds than squares. Besides that, the highways evolved out of proximity to our two major creeks, Irwin Creek and Little Sugar Creek, while many other roads stem from the old farmers' routes. Basically, the small winding trails simply grew over time, forming a street system that will confuse the masses. And just for good measure, many of the streets and highways don't even have streetlights, so it can be pretty dark when driving down those windy roads at night. Speaking of confusing the masses, let me briefly touch on traffic circles and Michigan lefts. If you're visiting or thinking about moving to the greater Charlotte area, you're bound to run into some of these traffic patterns. First of all, traffic circles or roundabouts are so much better than red lights or stop signs. I actually wish we had more of these. There are a lot of crazy intersections that would benefit from a well-placed roundabout. Hey, let me ask you something. If you're driving into a roundabout and someone tells you to drive all the way around, what exit do you take? I'm curious because Jason and I do not agree on this. One of us, I'm not telling you which is which, one of us believes that all the way around will get you to the last exit before you get back to where you started. The other one believes that all the way around brings you back the way you came, for instance, if you have to go back home because you forgot something, right? So which one is true in your eyes? Leave a comment below. Now, don't kill me, but I also don't hate Michigan lefts. So if you're not familiar with this traffic pattern, this is where you come up to an intersection. Imagine we're on the green line. You come up to this intersection and you cannot go straight or make a left. Your only option is to make a right. Then you immediately make a U-turn and you can either go the opposite direction or you can make that next right and go what would be straight. Now, it's certainly not an ideal traffic pattern, but the idea behind it is to keep traffic moving more smoothly and more quickly. I'm not completely sold on this traffic pattern, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Heck, I'd be happy if every intersection were a traffic circle, but that's just me. You might be thinking that you'd be better off not driving after hearing all of this bad news, but Charlotte is a driving city. If you're planning a move from a city or town where you can easily get around by riding a bike or walking, then you may feel out of your element in Charlotte. You would honestly want to stick to places like Uptown, Plaza Midwood, South End, or Noda. One last thing while we're on the topic of roads is that Charlotte does have a couple of toll roads, and that is number 3 on my list. Before I moved here, tolls were just something I dealt with when traveling. Now I'm on a toll road at least once a week. If you'll be frequenting Union County or I-77 near Lake Norman, you are bound to see express lanes or expressways which require a toll payment, so it is imperative that you sign up for the NC Quick Pass. You can certainly avoid using these roads, but it will cost you with time. These express lanes and expressways are less trafficky and therefore faster, which means you'll have to choose between money and time. On average, I spend about $5 to $10 a month on tolls, but I am mainly using the Monroe Expressway in Union County. If you're traveling the I-77 express lanes near Lake Norman, you are bound to be spending more, especially if you're using those daily. There's been kind of a common theme here so far, and we're not straying very far from that theme for number 4. The NC Vehicle Property Tax. You have to admit, it's crazy expensive to move. And the last thing you want is to find out once you get to your new home sweet home that you have to dish out more unexpected money. Now, obviously, every state has different taxes, different laws, all of those things. But if you've never moved out of state before, it may not be something you're thinking about. When we went to the license plate office to switch out our Ohio license plates for North Carolina license plates, we found out about this tax the hard way. The property tax is based on the value of your vehicles, and when you go into the office to switch out your plates, you don't get any advance notice or time to pay, so it is something you want to be thinking about ahead of time. And just keep in mind, it generally does cost quite a bit more on that first trip than it does for the annual tax payment. There is a link down in the description below to a tax estimator so that maybe you can get an idea of how much you'll owe before you go in. Just remember, it could very well be a couple $100s per vehicle that you're registering. Another quick side note here is to make an appointment for the DMV. Trust me when I tell you, these places are super busy. If you go in and wait in line, it could take hours to get through it. So if you make an appointment, then you can get in and out relatively quickly. The tricky part here is that they are often booked out for weeks, if not months in advance. I also posted the link to schedule that appointment down in the description below. Hopefully that makes it a little easier on you. Let's finally leave those mean streets behind and go to number 5. HOAs. Now, HOAs aren't strictly a Charlotte thing, but if you're moving from an area where they're not as prevalent, then it might come as quite a shock to you because the majority of homes available in the greater Charlotte area are likely to be in a homeowners association. You see, most of the area around Charlotte used to be farmlands, and the big developers came in, offered buku bucks, and developed subdivisions or neighborhoods. And that is the same story we've seen over and over again. HOAs are essentially hyper-local forms of government, and if you're not used to them, you might be surprised to find out the rules and regulations that might be enforced. To make it even more complicated, each and every subdivision or neighborhood will have a completely different situation. When buying a home in the Charlotte area, it is imperative that you take a look at their CC&Rs. This stands for Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions, and is basically a rule book for how to survive living in that neighborhood. They can be anywhere from 4 pages long up to 80 pages long and anywhere in between. But you're absolutely going to want to know what the rules of engagement are in your new neighborhood. There can be rules about where you can park, what kind of fence you can have, whether or not you can plant a garden, what types of pets you can have, and even the color of your mailbox. There may be rules about the condition of your landscaping, where you can store your trash cans, and even when you can decorate for holidays. Besides all the rules, you're also required to pay them fees. The amount and schedule of these fees can vary greatly. You could pay monthly, quarterly, or annually, and sometimes these fees correlate to what you get out of the neighborhood. For instance, in neighborhoods where the landscaping is covered by the HOA, you're definitely going to be paying a premium. Or in neighborhoods where you have phenomenal amenities like a great neighborhood pool, playground, or fitness center, you will almost certainly pay more there as well. However, there are times where it seems like you're paying a fortune and not receiving any of those things. Plus, if the HOA needs additional funds to cover an unexpected expense, like a new roof on the clubhouse or new sidewalks, they can also impose special assessments. In addition, when you purchase a home, you often have to pay a capital contribution, which is basically paying your way into the HOA. Again, these fees vary greatly from neighborhood to neighborhood. HOAs are just one more thing to consider when planning a move to Charlotte. If you're still watching this video, I can tell you are serious about planning a move to the Charlotte area. So take a look down in the description. There is a link for scheduling a Zoom appointment with me. We can virtually tour the city and find out which neighborhoods offer a lifestyle you would enjoy. I do not blame you in the least for wanting to move here. We have the best location, the best weather, and so much to do. Of course, we all know that Charlotte is a growing city. Some experts estimate that between 100 and 150 people move here each and every day. Living in a growing city can be amazing, but there are also some drawbacks. And this brings me to number 6 on my list. One of the unfortunate side effects of living in an area that is rapidly growing is that public school attendance maps are ever evolving. Nearly every school you see will have trailers on site to accommodate a growing population. In an effort to avoid overpopulation and overcrowding in certain schools and to keep things balanced, sometimes the school attendance maps and school zones need to be reconfigured. It's not something that's going to happen every year, and most people don't experience frequent shifts in their home schools. But as with everything I've mentioned, research is key. Take a look at the school ranking websites and you'll quickly find that one of the highest rated schools in the Charlotte area is Weddington. Because the schools are so desirable, that drives up the prices of homes that are zoned for Weddington schools. Now, if these boundary lines were redrawn and some of the homes that were zoned for Weddington are now zoned for a school with a lower rating, you're likely going to see home prices in that very specific area come down, and most likely, a lot of those homeowners will try to sell in a short time frame. At the same time they're driving prices down in their neighborhoods, they'll be driving prices up in the neighborhoods zoned for Weddington schools because of supply and demand just went through the roof. Another situation that could come up are enrollment freezes. Last year, I had clients searching for a home in Fort Mill, and some of their schools were experiencing enrollment freezes. The freeze was originally put in place in February 2023 to prevent overcrowding at Gold Hill Elementary School, Gold Hill Middle School, and Pleasant Knoll Middle School. In the neighborhoods zoned for these schools, if a new family moved into the neighborhood, those children would have to be bused to another local school. That can be tough on kids who are now not able to go to school with their new friends and neighbors in their neighborhood. As of now, that freeze is over, but it always remains a possibility as overcrowding is a real concern. If you need an education alternative, keep in mind that Charlotte does have plenty of private and charter schools available. Number 7 on my list of things I wish I knew before moving to Charlotte is that it is a foodie city. You will find hundreds of delicious restaurants here offering every type of cuisine imaginable. Not only are you going to find traditional dining options, but you're also going to find award-winning chefs, food halls, breweries, and experiential dining. What really makes Charlotte's food scene so special is the combination of classic burger joints and good old Southern barbecue spots. It's the fact that folks will never agree on who makes the best fried chicken. What it all boils down to is the mix of old and new. So you get it, there's a lot of food in the Queen City, and almost as much beer. In fact, there are over 50 breweries in the Charlotte area. If you like beer, you will be in heaven. Even this topic is not without controversy, because Charlotte is a foodie town, but they may be lacking a little bit of food culture. In other words, there's no signature dish that Charlotte is known for. And for some reason, that gets people upset. I think what happened is that Charlotte is such a melting pot of people from all over the globe that they all brought their foods here to Charlotte and created kind of a buffet instead of everyone eating the native menu, to the point where no one really knows what the native menu was. I think you can either look at the bright side and say, hey, we've got it all, or you can choose to be negative. And I always choose positivity. Next up on my list of things I wish I knew before moving to Charlotte is number 8. That Charlotte is a transplant city. I never would have imagined before moving here that most of the people I would meet would be from somewhere else. A study in 2019 determined that only about 41% of residents are native Charlotteans, but I would not be surprised to find out that that was a generous number. People often joke that native Charlotteans are unicorns because of their rarity. As with anything, there is a mix of positive and negative in this fact. If you spend any time here in the Queen City, you are certainly going to encounter someone who is bothered by outsiders invading their space. It's far more common to find them in the form of keyboard ninjas, irritated by the traffic, the development, or even people looking for good pizza. But occasionally you'll also find them IRL, shaking their fists at progress. On the other hand, being part of a transplant city has its benefits. First of all, you get to experience people from different backgrounds and different cultures all in one place. Another benefit of it being a transplant city is that you are going to find social groups for almost any group you could fit yourself into. When you move here, you can't just sit around and hope your tribe finds you. You have to make a concerted effort to find them. There are any number of events, activities, groups, or clubs to join if you simply look for them. And as for activities, there is no shortage of things to do. If you get my weekly newsletter, I send out a couple ideas each week, but my inbox is filled with dozens of options every single week. You'll never be bored here unless that's what you're going for. Number 9 on our list is bugs and pests. Now, when I say pests, I understand this is a very broad and general category, so I'm going to try to break it down, but what I'm mainly referring to are those pests that I've actually heard people complaining about. Let me begin with the big one. Snakes. Now, I did not know about this at all before I moved here, and if I'm being honest, it took me a couple years of living here before I even knew it was an issue. But snakes are actually fairly common in the Charlotte area. Keep in mind that it is going to depend a little bit on where you end up moving in the Charlotte area. Obviously, if you are near woods, you are far more likely to run into some of these guys than if you live in an uptown Charlotte condo. So let's take a look at the most common species you're likely to encounter in the Charlotte area. First up is the black rat snake. This one is non-venomous, but they can get very large. They're usually going to be following their food, and they are great hunters. Some other non-venomous species of snake you might run into are the black racer, the eastern king snake, the corn snake, and the good old garter snake. Unfortunately, we also have some venomous species in the area that you'll want to be on the lookout for. Without a doubt, the most common venomous snake in the area is the copperhead. The majority of venomous bites are attributed to these guys, and there can be serious consequences. So seek medical attention if you are bitten. Other venomous species that you could find here are the cottonmouth and the eastern diamondback rattlesnake. If snakes are a major concern of yours, be sure to try to stay away from wooded areas or fresh water like lakes and ponds, where these guys are going to be way more common. Another tip is trying to keep your yard free of items where snakes might hide, and also keeping your landscaping nice and trimmed. Last but not least, definitely go ahead and join all of the snake identification groups on Facebook so that you can stay educated and informed. Moving on from snakes, let's talk about bugs. The first one I see a lot of here are stink bugs. These little stinkers can be extremely annoying and a little smelly, but they're not as bad as you might think. They actually eat up to 50 different types of insects, so they may be keeping the exterminator away. The next pest on our list is cockroaches. Everybody hates cockroaches, and unfortunately, they can be common in Charlotte. They're certainly going to be more common in apartments and condos, as well as schools and commercial buildings. The next one you could probably guess, mosquitoes. These have got to be the most annoying pest on the planet, and for some reason, they love me. I always get more mosquito bites than anyone else around. Mosquitoes love the humidity and standing water, so if you are looking for a home in the Charlotte area and you are sensitive to these little buggers, then you may want to be sure that you don't have standing water or drainage issues at the property. Next up is a pest you may not have considered, termites. Termites are plentiful in the Carolinas and are destructive to homes and other structures. When you're buying a home in the Carolinas, it is extremely important to have a wood-destroying pest inspection completed so that you know what the situation is on termites in your new home. Finding termites in a home you're purchasing does not have to be a deal killer because there are remediation options available. And if you hate the thought of termites, hire an exterminator to put up bait for the termites and get a termite bond, which is a warranty against termites. The exterminator will come out every so often and check to make sure that your home is free and clear. Another pest you're almost certain to find here are spiders. Now, I don't blame you if you hate spiders, especially if they're big and hairy, but it's important to remember that spiders do eat other insects, and therefore they may be helpful to have around. Just keep in mind that it is very possible to see wolf spiders, brown recluse, and even black widows here in the Charlotte area. Some other creepy crawlies you may encounter here in the greater Charlotte area are going to be centipedes, earwigs, ants, ticks, and cicadas. So yeah, we have bugs and snakes here in the Carolinas, but there are preventative measures you can take to keep them out of your house and yard. So just make sure you know your options. And before we get to number 10, if you have found value here today, can you go ahead and like this video? It lets other people know that there's value here. And now for number 10, this is the key. This one right here is going to make or break your relocation. This experience is your own, and you have to make it your own. I can tell you what works for me. Someone else can tell you what works for them. And if you are researching on social media, you're going to hear lots of opinions. And let's face it, lots of negativity. Everything is just so negative these days, y'all. There's so much negativity everywhere. People spend more time complaining and talking about bad things than they do about good things. But in my heart of hearts, I truly feel like you can thrive almost anywhere. More than anything else, it has to do with your mindset. Moving to Charlotte, it can be so exciting. It can get you out of your comfort zone. And I think it'll be a wonderful experience if you choose to make it one. Know that anything in life, y'all, it comes with bumps in the road, trials and tribulations. Everything's not going to be a walk in the park all the time. But you've got to find some way to get back on track. Some way to be able to thrive and grow and maintain a positive attitude. I know you're thinking that that is just a cliche, just be positive. But listen, if you are positive, you are going to attract positive people. The people I've met here have been so warm and inviting and friendly. And this move is going to be what you make of it. If you go in with a positive attitude, you are going to have a wonderful experience. All right, that's everything. If you have questions about moving to the Charlotte area, I want you to reach out. All of my contact information is down in the description below. Heck, there's even a link to my calendar so that you can schedule a Zoom at a time that works best for you, because there's a lot of homework to do before you're going to be ready to make that move. I hope you got tremendous value out of today's video. I personally love doing videos like this. If you moved to Charlotte from somewhere else, will you leave a comment below if I missed something? It's time to go out and love Charlotte. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.